A few years ago, a woman named Sandra noticed her golden retriever Brody had started following her from room to room. Not in the usual way, not the bounding, hopeful way dogs follow you because they think you might be heading to the treat drawer. Quietly, staying close, lying down next to her instead of on his usual spot by the couch. She felt completely fine. She had no symptoms, no reason to go to the doctor. But Brody kept doing it. For weeks, this low-level, constant presence she couldn't explain. She eventually went to her doctor just to get it out of her head. They found early-stage breast cancer, caught early enough that she recovered fully. She later said the only reason she went was because of the dog. So the question is, what did Brody know? And how long had he known it? Most people, when they hear stories like this, file them under amazing, but probably coincidence. Or they assume it's simple. Dogs can smell sickness. We know this. Move on. But the science of what's actually happening is stranger and more precise than that framing suggests. And the timeline is the part that should stop you cold. Dogs have approximately 300 million olfactory receptors. Humans have around 6 million. The part of their brain dedicated to analyzing scent is proportionately 40 times larger than ours. But raw detection power isn't the interesting part. The interesting part is what they're detecting and when. Cancer cells metabolize differently than healthy cells. That difference produces volatile organic compounds, specific chemicals that get carried into the bloodstream, into breath, into sweat, into urine. To a human nose, those compounds are undetectable. To a dog, they are a signal, a very specific, very readable signal. In a 2019 study, dogs were trained to detect lung cancer from blood samples alone. Their accuracy rate was 97%. Clinical screening methods at early stages don't come close to that number. In some studies, dogs have detected cancer at stage 0, before imaging technology could find a tumor at all. But here's where it gets strange. Because medical detection studies mostly involve trained dogs that have been deliberately taught to identify specific compounds through weeks of conditioning. Brody wasn't trained. Neither are the hundreds of dogs whose owners report the same behavior, the following, the staying close, the change in manner, weeks or months before a diagnosis. What those dogs are doing isn't trained detection, it's something more instinctive and harder to explain. Some researchers believe untrained dogs aren't detecting a single compound. They're tracking a system. They're reading the full biological signature of a body that is beginning to change, before any single symptom has surfaced, before the person themselves has any reason to think something is wrong. They're not reading a word, they're reading the tone of the whole sentence. And it doesn't stop at cancer. Dogs have been documented alerting to seizures up to 45 minutes before they occur, before any observable physical change in the person. They alert to diabetic hypoglycemia when blood sugar drops, detecting changes that haven't yet registered as symptoms. There are documented cases of dogs hawing at, circling, or lying across the exact location on their owner's body where a clot or tumor would later be found. In one case, a dog kept nosing at a mole on its owner's leg that turned out to be early-stage melanoma. The owner had had the mole for years and ignored it. The dog suddenly couldn't. What's happening in these cases is not magic. It's biology operating at a resolution we can't access. The dog is receiving information about your body that your body hasn't transmitted to you yet. The question that sits underneath all of this, the one nobody has a clean answer to, is what the dog makes of that information. In hospice settings, something shifts again. There are therapy dogs in end-of-life care facilities around the world, and the staff who work alongside them describe a consistent pattern. The dogs move differently through the ward. They spend time with many patients, but in the final hours of a person's life, they tend to settle. They'll go to a room and not leave. They'll lie next to someone quietly for hours. In many cases, they've done this before any medical indicator pointed to what was coming. Nurses who have worked with these dogs for years describe learning to pay attention to them, not as a clinical tool, as a signal worth taking seriously. There was a dog at a hospice facility in Rhode Island named Oscar. A cat, actually, but the principle is the same. And Oscar became the most documented case of this behavior in medical literature. Oscar lived at the Steer House Nursing and Rehabilitation Center. Over a period of years, Oscar was observed curling up with patients in their final hours, patients he had shown no particular interest in before. Staff began using his behavior as an informal alert. In cases where family members lived far away, they would call them when Oscar settled in. He was present for over 100 deaths. His accuracy was consistent enough that the facility staff published an account of it in the New England Journal of Medicine. We don't know what Oscar understood. We don't know what Brody understood. What we know is this: the biological systems that allow animals to detect change in a living body are vastly more sensitive than our own. We know that the emotional attunement dogs specifically have developed toward humans over 15,000 years of coevolution goes beyond smell. They track our gaze, our posture, our cortisol levels, our micro-expressions. They are reading us constantly in every register available to them. And we know that when something in that reading changes, they respond to it. Whether there is something it's like to be a dog who knows, some version of awareness that their person is moving toward something, we cannot say. We don't have a way in. What we can say is that the behavior is real, the detection is real, the staying close is real. Sandra recovered. She and Brody had several more years together before he passed of old age. She said in an interview afterward that she never fully knew how to think about what he did. She didn't want to call it a gift because that made it sound like he understood what he was giving her. She didn't want to call it instinct because that made it sound like it didn't matter. She settled on something quieter than either word. She said he just stayed near her when something was wrong, and that, whatever it was, that was enough. Your dog cannot tell you what it knows. It cannot sit down and explain what it's reading in your chemistry, your body, the slow shifts that happen before anything surfaces. It doesn't have the words, and it doesn't need them. What it has is something older than language, more precise than any instrument we built, and pointed entirely at you. Whether or not it understands what's coming, it knows you're changing, and it's not going anywhere.